Retinoids have been studied extensively to help the signs of aging. Now, they are proven to help skin texture, soften fine lines, treat acne, reduce hyperpigmentation, and prevent collagen degradation. Retinoids are also that skincare ingredient that most people don't quite understand. Retinoids are synthetic version of vitamin A, the group of fat-soluble vitamins that you find in eggs, sweet potatoes, carrots. Retinoids essentially teach aging skin cells to act like healthier, younger ones by teaching them how to rapidly turn over. Retinoids is an umbrella term for a class of molecules, but let's go through the different forms that you probably have heard or are familiar with a few of them. So the first derivative, a retinol ester. Now this is the weakest of retinoids. It requires 3 conversions on the skin to actually form the active retinoic acid. Because it is weaker and it requires these conversions on the skin, it is actually the most gentle. That said, it also is the least effective. The next level is retinol, and this is the most commonly used, most commonly widely known. You'll find it in many different skincare brands. And retinol actually requires 2 conversions on the skin to form the active form of retinoic acid. So, in other words, it doesn't work right away. Retinol, depending on the concentration, can be still slightly irritating, but it is definitely better tolerated for most skin. It's also been proven to effectively work over time. So time being the major factor, it will take more time for it to start to work and to continue to work than the more active version. The next level is retinaldehyde, and this is the second strongest form of retinoids. It requires only 1 conversion on the skin to form the retinoic acid, and it's a lesser known form. Brands are starting to use it a little bit more in their products. It is still over the counter, so you can access it without a prescription, but because it is a little bit more of an active form, it can cause even more irritation. Lastly, retinoic acid is the active form, and this is what you want your products to convert into. Retinoic acid can be used in its whole form through prescription creams. So Retin-A is a very common brand, but of course you need your doctor to prescribe this for you. And because it works immediately on the skin, and for that reason it can be also extremely irritating, especially when not used properly. Now, if you've been afraid to use retinoids, you're not alone. There's a lot of misunderstanding about retinol, especially since it's often misused, creating kind of those nightmare situations of, extreme redness, inflammation, flakiness, just awful things on the skin. But this gives retinol a really bad rep. As a result of, this misuse and the fact that you can't use retinoid products during pregnancy and breastfeeding, then a lot of people think it's kind of one of those scary ingredients. But remember this, the dose makes the poison. Some essential oils, widely accepted as, in natural skincare, are also toxic for fetuses during pregnancy. Retinol is a synthetic form of vitamin A, as we said. It's a fat-soluble vitamin that can be found in eggs and sweet potatoes and carrots. In high quantities, vitamin A is actually toxic for adults. This usually only happens when vitamin A is consumed via supplementation or through oral retinoids. It would be actually quite difficult to overdose on sweet potatoes or topical retinol for that matter. The risk of vitamin A toxicity from the use of topical retinoids is extremely low for adults, if not impossible. And this has been studied. Topical retinol has the ability to deeply absorb into the skin, unlike most other topicals, and so this is why it's effective at creating such change within the skin. For this reason, it also has some systemic absorption, meaning that it can actually go throughout the body. So if you're pregnant, that could reach the placenta. The problem is for the tiny fetus, we can't be certain of how much vitamin A is actually being absorbed, so it's recommended just to avoid it altogether. But for adults, retinol's effect on health has been studied quite extensively, and even with maximal absorption, the systemic levels of retinoic acid, when used topically, from regular use are significantly lower than the recommended allowance for vitamin A in general. In other words, you could probably get more vitamin A from eating one sweet potato, which is equivalent to 5 times your daily vitamin A recommended amount, than by applying your topical retinol every single day, which I don't really recommend anyway, and we'll get into that. So when's a good time to start using retinol? Late 20s, early 30s is a good time. But keep in mind that retinol can be overused by preventing new skin cells from functioning well, and because they have been rapidly produced, because that's what retinol does, is it increases that cell division renewal, then therefore they will lack the necessary lipid production to protect the skin properly. So the more retinol you put on, the poorer the barrier function becomes. This is why a lot of people will experience sensitivities and flaky and redness because they've used either too much retinol over their lifetime, they've applied too much at a time, or they used it too frequently. So all of these factors can play a role in the condition of the skin. So what should you be looking for in retinol? So encapsulated retinol is one of the newest technologies, and this allows for the formulas to stabilize and become a little bit less irritating, so that you could possibly use a higher percentage of retinol with less irritation. Another good thing to look for is BHT-free retinol. Some will say that BHT in small doses is not a problem. I just always err on the side of caution and say, hey, if it doesn't need to be in my products, why should it be? One of the other most important things to do while using retinol is to protect your skin. So this includes moisturizing properly, but also then means sun protection as well. A few other things to keep in mind is it's generally advised not to use retinol every night, and there is a way to use retinol that will minimize irritation, which we will get into in the skincare protocol. And to avoid using alpha hydroxy acids, exfoliants with retinol, so keep those on separate days, and this will really minimize the risk of irritation. You need to use retinol consistently for at least 1 to 3 months to start to see any significant